And we begin with South Africa. The South African governing party, the ANC, has postponed a top-level meeting expected to decide on President Jacob Zuma's future. In a statement released by the party, it instead said it had held fruitful and constructive discussions with him. Mr. Zuma is under growing pressure from members of his own party to resign amid corruption allegations. South Africa's Times Live website on Tuesday night had quoted unnamed sources as saying Mr. Zuma was prepared to quit if the right terms can be negotiated. The parliament had earlier in the rare move postponed Thursday's State of the Nation address.
An emergency meeting originally scheduled for tonight has been rescheduled to the 17th of February. The Executive Committee, which has the power to compel the head of state to leave office, was to meet to discuss the president's future. But following the said fruitful and productive discussions between Zuma and the leader of the party, the ANC decided to postpone this meeting, which might suggest that an agreement has been reached.
Well, joining us over the phone now is Piet Rampedi. He's the editor of the African Times. Piet joins us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Piet, I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning. The ANC says it would make a major announcement later today on Jacob Zuma's fate after discussing the transition from him to Ramaphosa. Can we expect any surprise? Perhaps he's stepping down?
Look, anything can happen at this point in time. You recall that until recently, the ANC had requested President Jacob Zuma to resign and take office in favor of the new president of the ruling party, Cyril Ramaphosa. But at a meeting on Sunday, he told the top 6 officials of the ANC that he was going nowhere because he didn't believe he had done anything wrong. And those officials had been mandated by the party's National Executive Committee, which is the party's highest decision-making body, between conferences to speak to him and request him to step down and manage his transition the transition of government from his administration to Ramaphosa. So all these developments, coupled with a agent meeting between President Jacob Zuma and the king of the Zulu nation, King Fruitful, yesterday, have indicated a shift in attitude because he had been refusing to step down, and it appears that he's starting to have a change of heart because today he convened an agent cabinet meeting whose outcome has not been made public. So we won't be surprised if it comes across, or the outcome is that he's now stepping down. Because
Piet, like any president, Jacob Zuma would want to ensure certain things before he leaves office, maybe to rectify the ANC's legacy and deliver the State of the Nation's address, which has now been postponed. But why do you think that Jacob Zuma is defying all the calls to step down?
Look, President Jacob Zuma is still commanding a significant amount of support within the ruling ANC. This is the party he has grown up in as a member for more than 40 years, and this is the party he has led as president since 2007. So he's been in charge of that party for the past 10 years, and most of the party structures are led by his staunch supporters. Whether you talk about the party's youth wing, whether you talk about the party's women's wing, whether you talk about the party's veterans wing, whether you talk about the party's provincial structures in its home province of KwaZulu-Natal, in the Free State, in Northwest, and in Mpumalanga. So most of these structures are still led by his staunchest supporters. So the outcome of the recent national conference of the ANC in December was such that it was widely seen to be a 50-50 split in the sense that the top 6 officials of the party came from his faction and that of Ramaphosa, just 3 from each of the factions.
The ANC's new leader, Cyril Ramaphosa, has promised to fight corruption. Would Zuma's removal make anything different?
Look, Zuma's removal will just make things more easier for Ramaphosa, but even with Zuma still at the helm, he has already set the ball rolling. We saw immediately after his election in December, the Hawks, which is the country's elite crime-busting unit, started rounding up members of the Gupta family or companies linked to the Gupta family, which are suspected of having benefited from corruption. And this family is close to President Jacob Zuma. Their assets were frozen, and then they've also been charged in connection with a dairy farm scandal in the Free State, where they allegedly benefited to the tune of 30 million rand in taxpayers' money. So all these things have not been happening when President Jacob Zuma was in charge and Ramaphosa was not president of the ANC. But immediately after his election in December, we started seeing the Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority acting against allies of President Jacob Zuma who are suspected of corruption. And this shows that Ramaphosa is already setting the ball rolling, and Zuma's eventual departure from office will just give Ramaphosa more room to maneuver and implement his anti-corruption drive.